If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that between my family, my cousins, school, and the weird people I've met along the way, I've ended up with a collection of humiliations that seem like a divine punishment. And in this video, I'm not just going to tell you about one humiliation, but several, and each one is more outrageous than the last. There's Tizoc thinking he's the most handsome guy on the planet and getting a harsh reality check. There's the time I almost turned my aunt's wedding into a wild brawl when there was some weirdo in the plaza who thought he was a real mannequin, like the Therians. And some guy hit him with a punch that sent him flying right in the middle of the plaza. And then there's also the day when, because of a test, legendary chaos broke out at school. So get ready, because today we're not just here to tell one story. We're here to open the full case file on embarrassment. One time at school, my little cousin Tizoc thought he was the most handsome guy and ended up super embarrassed because he saw a really beautiful girl waving at him with both hands and a huge smile. Thinking he was smooth, he waved and shouted, "Hey girl!" Then he ran toward her to ask for her number. But suddenly she dodged him and greeted a super buff guy who was walking behind him. Then the girl and the guy just stared at him like, "Who is this weirdo?" And Tizoc, to avoid dying of embarrassment, started waving at an empty wall behind them. Then he went to hide in the bathroom and didn't come out for an hour. Once when I was 12, I was at my Aunt Philomena's wedding and she was having the best night of her life until I ruined it because I shouted,
"Watch out! The groom has a loaded gun!"
Because I had seen out of the corner of my eye that under his jacket something black and metallic was sticking out and shining. Then, in that instant, my uncle Chuchin, who was wearing a bulletproof vest because he had always distrusted the groom, stood up and shouted, "I knew it, you bastard!" And he pulled out a machete that was hidden under the table. But before it was too late, my grandma Chona shouted,
"Stop! I'm going to have a heart attack, you little devils!"
Then they checked the groom and yes, it looked like a gun, but it was really a fake lighter. And I was completely humiliated because my mom gave me 34 sandal slaps in front of everyone. One time at school, I convinced everyone that I had died just to skip the hardest exam. Because when I got there, I saw that the kids from the other class were crying out of frustration because of this devilish exam. Even the brainiac was crying, and I thought, oh man, I'm really dumb, I'm done for. Then, at one point, the teacher shouts, "Time to blow some heads off!" And I, scared to death, ran to the bathroom to put on white makeup so they'd think I had fallen down the stairs and it was my soul wandering around the classroom. But when I walk into the classroom, I tell my best friend, "Don't look at me, I'm a ghost, I died on the stairs." And the fool took it seriously and started screaming, crying.
"Manuel is dead! Manuel died!"
Then everyone got super hysterical and they cancelled the exam. Once in the plaza, I met a crazy guy who was worse than the Therians because that dude literally thought he was a mannequin. And all over the plaza, he was hitting people, waving his arms around and shouting, "I'm a mannequin! I'll hit anyone I see!" But to make things worse, the guards had just changed shifts. But the fool did the worst thing. He hit a man's wife and that guy was more ripped than Hulk. And the dad shouted,
"I'm gonna leave you more taken apart than a Lego set, you son of a bite."
And the best part was that we all just watched as the mannequin man went flying like 3 meters, and he was left lying there until the guards arrived. One time, a follower named Patricio got the beating of his life for being a Roblox trader. He was with his friend Mateo playing 99 Nights, but his mom sent him to the store. So he shouted to Mateo, "Mateo, protect me, man!" But when he came back, both of them were already knocked out. But the craziest thing is that Mateo's mom started yelling God-level insults at him, because according to her, he had abandoned her son in danger. And when she saw him in person, the lady beat him up, and now they don't let Patricio hang out with Mateo anymore, because he's not a trustworthy person. Once when I was 13, I was starving because I hadn't eaten in 3 days, so I went to a buffet without my parents. But I made a huge mistake, and I ended up fighting with the Chinese owner of the restaurant, because at the entrance it said, "All you can eat." And my thieving brain understood everything you can take home. So I started emptying trays of fried chicken into my backpack. I thought I was a genius and could eat until the end of the year. But when I had about 3 kilos of chicken, the owner saw me and yelled, "What are you doing, kid? Come heal." And he made me call my parents so they could pay for my mess. And back at home, my dad came up with a really cocky phrase. He said, "Son, hunger is mental, but debt is real." Once in elementary school, 2 teachers got into a fight, and one ended up with a black eye and a split lip. She was asking the janitor to defend her, because those two were in love with the handsome and cool teacher, and they were always competing to see who could win him over first. But one of them was kind of a witch and practiced witchcraft. And when Miss Cho saw the other teacher, the witch, doing weird things with the teacher's photo in the teacher's lounge, she didn't even flinch and said to her,
"Stop with the nonsense! course, Harry Potter. Let's settle this like women.
And the little witch thought she could win and said, "The sooner the better." And the teachers started fighting. But what the witch didn't know was that Miss Chol was an amateur boxer. So she gave her such a beating that even the students in the hallway were shouting,
Fight, fight, fight.
and she was all beaten up because her witchcraft was useless. One time at school, some friends made fun of me because they said I was going to be a YouTuber. The guys were named Salamandra, Cartoncine, and Tambo, and they always gathered in a circle to make fun of my videos and numb their miserable lives. And they always shouted at me, "Go talk to your 3 subscribers." But I manned up and kept uploading videos. Then, one day I realized that the same people who laughed at me were following me. And one day I ran into Tambo and he said, "Dude, it's you." And he asked me for a picture and a shout out, and I gave it to him, but I made him apologize first. So, if God gave you a dream, don't let it go. Once on a trip to the aquarium, the best friend of a subscriber named the Ghost was almost eaten because the guys went to the piranha area since they were super bored of seeing boring jellyfish. And to get the adrenaline going, the Ghost and Chimichanga were about to put their hands in the piranha tank. But when the teacher turned around and didn't see them, she started yelling,
You little devils, where did you go?
and with devilish grins, they said, "We're over here. We're going to put our hands in the piranhas. And if it survives, we'll put our thing in too." The poor teacher almost fainted, because if they did that, she would be the one responsible. And they were going to fire her, damn. So she grabbed an electric cart and sped over to pull their ears. And she never took her eyes off them again. Funniest part, when they told the principal, he laughed and asked, were they really going to put the PP in? Once in elementary school, I became the laughingstock of the class and everyone made fun of me because of a horrible gift I got. We had done a gift exchange and I got the poorest kid in the class. And I thought, I'll give him something cool to make him happy. When the day arrived, the teacher shouted,
Manuelito, give your gift to the person you drew.
and I, all excited, went and gave him a collection of Spider-Man figures, and Jorgito was really happy. But when it's my turn to get my gift, the rich kid in the class stands up and gives me my present. So happy, I start to unwrap it. I see it. It was just a dead cockroach with a tiny tie, and everyone laughed so hard they almost peed themselves. I thought it would be an expensive gift, but the kid was just stingy. But justice was even sweeter because they called his parents and they scolded him in front of everyone and they gave me a new gift, which was awesome. One time, about a week ago, I was with my mom in the living room, really excited because we were going to watch television with pizza and chips. Until the worst happened. Out of nowhere, we got on YouTube and nothing would load. And my mom started scolding me, saying,
You broke the television.
she was even going to disinherit me. So I restarted everything and nothing worked. But the worst part was there was a huge rumor going around. It wasn't my fault. YouTube had crashed because supposedly leaked videos of real reptilians were released and they took down the whole site so no one could see them. Once when my buddy Panza was 13 years old, he thought he was an action hero because he swore a hitman had broken into his house since he had just watched the John Wick movie. At night, he saw a tall silhouette aiming a gun at him in the living room. Disoriented, he grabbed a frying pan and a snack cake, then shouted a war cry, "Tee!" And he dove off the couch, but the fool landed chest first on the floor and totally wiped himself out. Because when he turned on the light, it turned out the hitman was actually his mom's coat rack with an umbrella hanging on it, and since that day his parents call him John Deadly Pounds. One time, my cousin Mantecas almost got kidnapped because of his addiction to Roblox. Because my aunt had told him, the technician is coming, son, keep an eye out. But the fool, desperate to play, opened the door to a guy who looked like a thief, who didn't even have a single cable. Then the kidnapper grabbed him and started taking him to the exit door. But then, an unexpected miracle happened. His neighbor, Don Gustavino, was passing by, walking his pit bull, and he let the dog loose on the kidnapper, sending him straight to the hospital and then to jail. Then, at that moment, the real technician arrived, asking about the modem, and Mantecas shouted while crying,
Leave! I don't want the internet. I'd rather live in prehistoric times.
Ultimately, they endured laggy internet for a month due to his trauma.
Mama, I'm a criminal. Mama, I'm a criminal.